far do you go into that area. At the time, staff we did not do a really neighborhood study for that area, so it was hard for us to actually make any type of recommendation. And so that project, the homeowner, I believe, found a renter and was able to remove that off the docket for the planning commission.
So the property in question here, what was it used for prior to the renovation, before it was put on the market for
Was
sale?
that a house or a duplex?
It was like a seven-plex.
7 apartments. So it's multi-family use.
Multi-family.
7 units.
This is my last comment. It seems to me if the Preservation Trust wants to be friendly, why didn't they go to their residents and ask them? They have neighborhood meetings. Why didn't they do that? I mean, they're just not taking into consideration of the people that they represent.
And I understand that they did have a neighborhood meeting that they did call. The concern, from what I understand from one of the property owners, is that they did use the listserv to notify property owners, to give them an opportunity to come to a meeting. This occurred before the planning commission. Staff was not aware of the meeting, at least I wasn't aware of the meeting, so I wasn't there. But they did try to reach out and give people the opportunity to know about the rezoning. And then, of course, staff, we post the property and send out, put notices in paper and send out to property owners within 400 feet.
One more thing, Mr. Mayor. On the staff recommendation, it is stated, staff respectfully asks the commission to consider the long-term impact of rezoning, future rezoning along South Spring Street between Beta Club Way, Lee Street, and Henry Street in terms of deciding where that demarcation line begins.
Yes.
I think we've got a situation here where we are looking at the Hampton Heights area and creating a seamless transition between Hampton Heights and the downtown, and also the adjacent areas, potentially the Grain District. And I think this is problematic here, and what we're trying to do in breaking up that continuity.
Yeah, in terms of trying to create a seamless kind of pattern from the single family here on up, I mean, one of the things is that this particular little stretch here, in terms of looking at the traffic impact, and yes, I know that these houses were here first, but looking at the use over here, one of the things I think that was discussed before was trying to make this a live work, which would almost be the same in terms of allowing someone to live upstairs and having their offices or business downstairs, but that became an issue at the time, a building requirement issue. So there's always been talk of just this block here of what could we do, because it is kind of a block that is kind of maybe the transition for the neighborhood into the downtown area. So there's been a number of conversations just about that little stretch, and that's it as far as I know. And I do have Ms. Webb here, if you have any questions.
You know, it's a two-sided sword. You want to rezone it, LOD, or you want to leave it as run property. LOD, we can sort of control what goes in there like that.
Or same thing.
But, any more questions?
Ms. Mayor.
Yes.
Ms. Monroe, if I'm looking correctly, right now in that block that we're referring to, there are 12 pieces of property. I don't know if there are, how many of those pieces of property are owned by the same owner, but if you look at the 10 that are still zoned residential, have those 10 been contacted regarding, or have they come to the hearings and provided their input on their insights or wishes, if you will, for that block? Has there been any insight?
I know, I believe it was the owner of this house or this house. He actually came to the planning commission meeting in support of the rezoning. That would be you, okay. And as far as the rest of this block, I know the homeowner, or the property owner here, Ms. Fisher, she was also at the meeting, and she does not support the rezoning. I don't know if any other property owners here on this block here, Hyder Street, I believe Preservation Trust may own two of the lots, the houses on this street, but in terms of the actual planning commission meeting, we had 2 owners that came. One was in support and one was not.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Mayor, one question. current preservation building.
Yes,
What,
right here.
what's the plans for it if it's approved and you move to the other building?
I'll let them answer that, but they don't own that building, as far as I know, they don't own that building, so it would still be under the same ownership of, I don't know who owns that.
No, Raymond Floyd owns that building.
Mr.
Raymond Floyd.
Raymond Floyd, he would still own that building, he can still look for, additional tenants, but I understand that maybe Preservation Trust may work with him to try to sublease their space, but he would still have control and ownership of his building.
Can you tell me about the state of the house before, the Preservation Trust had it? Was it occupied or?
I'll let them address that, if you have any other questions for me. Christie, would you want to come up
Yeah,
and
I'll
address
just go ahead
that
and
question for me?
I'm just gonna make a brief presentation.
Nate, if you're ready.
Is that okay, just to read you a couple things? Okay.
We
Why don't you
had
answer the
done
question
a couple of
first?
Sure.
things.
Well, next time.
I'm sorry, do we have an
Though it was actually a 7-unit apartment complex, and then it actually was condemned by our ownership by the city of Spartanburg.
So it's been vacant for a long time?
It had been vacant for probably close to a year by the time we got ownership of it, from Walter.
Any other questions? Declare this public hearing open. Now, does anybody like to speak in favor of this,
Sorry about that. I'm Christy Way, Executive Director of the Preservation Trust of Spartanburg. We come today because we seek to rezone the property at 234 South Spring Street from R8 SFD to LOD. Due to the situation and challenges of 234 South Spring Street, the Trust is requesting that boundaries of the LOD zoning be extended 50 feet to include 234 South Spring Street. We anticipate this will be the new office location for Preservation Trust of Spartanburg, Partners for Active Living, and the Hub City Farmers Market, creating a unique space for nonprofit organizations that can share expenses and better collaborate under one roof. It is our intention to market the present office space, which we do have a long-term lease agreement on, to other compatible organizations with whom we can create a synergy. As part of this plan, we'll be installing numerous bike racks, as a large percentage of our actual staff does reside within the Hampton Heights Historic District. And most meetings, large meetings, are held off-site. On January 11th, we held an informational meeting to discuss the potential acts of zoning. The notice of the meeting was sent to neighborhood listserv on multiple occasions. This listserv has approximately 175 members. And in the notice, we encouraged attendance to the meeting and also invited phone calls from those who could not make it. In all, 5 residents attended our meeting, and I conversed with one additional neighbor via telephone. As you know from our narrative included in your packet, the Trust purchased 234 South Spring Street in August of 2005. At the time, the house was divided into 7 apartments and was condemned. We entered into a contract, to agreement to contract with the buyer in September of 2005. This buyer partnered with the Trust to restore the property and chose floor plan modifications, paint colors, etc. to suit his needs. We worked for several years on the project, but unfortunately in November 2008, the buyer informed us that he could no longer finance the project and walked away, putting us in a humongous bind, as we had invested over $110,000 of our own capital, confident that he would indeed purchase it. Since December 2008, the Trust has actively marketed the house for sale and entertained a second purchase agreement, which also fell through. In September 2009, we hired Longleaf Development to list the property on the multiple listing service. Since listing it, the Trust has reduced the price by $32,000 to generate additional interest. However, there have been no other interested buyers and the property continues to sit vacant. Given our large investment in the property, the Trust began investigating other options for the use and the occupancy of this property. Its location and the consequent traffic issues related to the design of the post office make it an undesirable location for residential use. The size of the property also adds challenges to finding an appropriate buyer that exceeds 3,000 square feet. 234, as we said, is protected by the local historic designation, and any review of the exterior would be done and also would prevent further demolition. These are going to remain in effect regardless of the zoning. Today, we ask that the board consider our rezoning request to allow for a slightly broader variety of uses for this property. In this instance, we wish to occupy the home and will abide by all historic guidelines and minimally impact the exterior and interior of the property with this use.